Welcome, everybody. Doug and Aleya here. And we thought it would be interesting to talk for a few minutes about why it is that people don't talk. Now, that sounds a little weird. What do you mean by it? People don't talk. Have you, everybody, all of us, have been in situations where we wanted to say something important, but we didn't say it. Or maybe somebody is trying to engage us, a partner is trying to engage us in a more intimate conversation, and we don't engage. And the question is, why is that? Why is it that we can't be authentic and open and really share what we're thinking and feeling deep inside? And there are a whole bunch of reasons why this happens, and it's very, very, very common. The first thing that I think is important to recognize is that if you don't have the ability to talk, well, you probably have the ability, but if you don't feel like you can talk, it's because you're not feeling emotionally safe. You don't feel like you're in an emotionally safe space because you're afraid that if you speak your truth, bad things will happen. You might get rejected. You might get invalidated. You might create anger or escalate an already difficult situation. And you're afraid that you'll be looked at as unworthy or stupid or trivial. So you have your reputational interest that you are trying to protect. You are afraid of rejection. You are afraid of creating more problems, and you're afraid that your partner, whoever it is that you need to talk to, is going to react negatively to what you have to say. And so rather than take the risk of being honest and open, we don't talk. We just pass on the difficult subjects where we're going to have difficult conversations. And what happens, of course, is that over a period of time, more and more barriers grow between you and the person that you need to have this conversation with because you're sort of dodging around the elephant on the table. Nobody really wants to talk about it or discuss whatever the issue is. And you feel more and more isolated, and you feel more and more resentful, and that breaks down trust, and it breaks down intimacy. And now we get into a vicious cycle where you're feeling all this need to talk but are afraid to do anything about it. And it's probably one of the most common relationship problems. And it's also one that is really pretty easily solved if you have a little courage. And one of the ways that Aleya and I deal with this, we don't have this problem, but one of the techniques that we've developed over the years is what we call the Buddha bubble. And it does take a partner who's willing to listen and be non-reactive, but basically you ask your partner, could you please step into the Buddha bubble? And when your partner because I want to talk, and I want you to listen. I don't want you to reply back. And so the rules are that when you step into the Buddha bubble, you can't ask questions, you can't interject, you can't comment, you can't criticize, you can't judge. All you can do is affect label. You can reflect back emotions, but you can't say anything else. You can't interrupt. You can't defend yourself. You can't apologize. You can't do anything. When you're in the Buddha bubble, you're in a place of total serenity and compassion and equanimity. And all you're doing is listening to your partner, whatever your partner has to say. And no matter how bad it is, you're going to be non-reactive. And you're going to demonstrate non-reactivity, even though inside you might be just churning, and you say, "Oh, that's wrong." You're going off. You're going off inside because you're getting triggered yourself. You can't underestimate the power of being in the Buddha bubble. However, it does take discipline because you're going to hear stuff that's going to be unpleasant, and there's no way around that. You just have to take it and listen to it, and let it run its course. And then after your partner's done talking about it, you can think about whether there should be a response, or maybe sometimes now you've gotten so agitated inside the Buddha bubble, you need to have your partner step into the Buddha bubble and do the same thing in reverse. And that's a really good way of being able to find enough safety to be able to have these more difficult conversations around topics that, whatever they are, they're taboo topics that you need to talk about, but nobody wants to talk about it because there are unwritten rules that say we don't talk about this stuff. The second way, more sophisticated, is to learn how to do reflective listening. Primarily emotional reflective listening, what we talked about before, called affect labeling, where you ignore the words, read the emotions, and reflect back the emotions with a simple you statement. When you have mastered this skill, it doesn't matter what anybody says to you, because you just, it's impossible for you to get triggered once you've mastered this skill. And so, and the beauty of affect labeling is that your partner can talk, you're not getting reactive, and not only that, you're calming them, you're calming your partner down, you're deeply validating them into existence, listening them into existence, you're validating their emotions and their experiences. Even though you might disagree with the whole thing, it doesn't matter. You really can never disagree with somebody's emotions, because they're their emotions, and that's just what they're feeling. And they may blame you for what they're feeling, but that doesn't matter. They're still having these feelings, and those feelings need to be validated. So affect labeling is another way to develop this. And the other thing about this kind of listening that can be so powerful is that if you affect label on a fairly a regular basis, a daily basis, you're listening to each other deeply on a daily basis, guess what grows? Trust, intimacy, and most importantly, emotional safety. So that's why the practice of affect labeling in relationships is so powerful and so important. Aleya, what's your take on it?
The other thing that grows is emotional consistency.
Yes.
So one of the reasons too why we don't communicate is because we haven't been in emotionally consistent relationships with friends, with family, maybe even colleagues or at work. People don't think about, am I an emotionally consistent person in relationship with others? And when I say emotional consistency, somebody who is not emotionally consistent would be somebody who you don't know what you're going to get on the day, right? Like you come home or you go to work or you're interacting or you're having lunch and you're like, maybe they're in a good mood, maybe they're not in a good mood. I hope they're in a good mood because who knows what I'm going to get. And so one of the ways to cultivate emotional consistency inside yourself is to start being more aware of the emotions, labeling your emotions, which also helps you de-escalate your own self. It builds self-awareness and emotional competency. And then Doug also has a course on emotional competency. And then we also have the empathic sensitivity, because if you're highly empathic and you don't even realize that 90% or 80% of what you're experiencing is actually the feelings of other people, then you get reactive thinking that it's yours instead of being able to go through a whole process of clearing the empathic sensation, coming back to a space of being centered. And we have an emotional competency course. But I think that the main piece with the why we don't talk is because we don't have a framework for it. We don't have guidelines. And a lot of the times we don't connect in like, hey, I'm going to go for a walk with my girlfriend. And at the very beginning of a conversation, like, it's so great to see you. And what kind of space do you want today? What kind of space do I want today? And me and my girlfriend, we've already had the conversation of all of the different ways of communicating. And I say, I just want to ramble. I just want to kind of like go all over the place and follow our stream of consciousness. And whatever I say is going to trigger something in you, and you're going to talk, and then I'm going to talk, and we're just going to go all over the place. Cool, great, that's fun. Or we come together and I say to my friend, I'm working through something and I need you just to hold a space, a really safe space, and silently hold a container for me to go deep into my own inner wisdom, my own inner knowing. Is that something that you could do today? Yeah, absolutely, for sure. So then my friend's just holding this very silent space. Or I might say to my friend, or she might say to me, okay, we're going through something and I just need to talk and I just need, yeah, wow, that's intense. Validate my emotions just a little bit, really subtle, really gentle. Is that something you can do? Absolutely. Or friend might say, man, I just had a gnarly thing blow up in my face this morning and I need you to be in Buddha bubble and I just got to process and poop. And I'm like, go for it. So then I validate very gently in a safe, supportive container. So there's all of these different ways of communicating depending on our needs. And we haven't had that conversation. We haven't learned those tools. So I think that that's why we don't communicate, because we don't have a supportive frame. And we haven't taken the time to learn the tools of how to sit in the Buddha bubble, how to affect label, how to reflect the emotions, how to just be with each other depending on the moment, depending on the need, depending on our current level of consciousness. So I think that when we drop in and we start reflecting on, we want to have different relationships with people. They're not really fulfilling. It's really frustrating. It's really annoying. Oh, let's start naming different ways of being able to communicate, learning those tools and practicing those tools and asking for those tools. The other piece around communication and why we don't talk is because a lot of the times our own internal reality, your own self-talk, the self-judgment, the self-critic, not meeting your needs deep in your core, looking for all of your needs from another person, those three stop you from communicating with anybody, because what's happening is your own self-critic, your own lack of self-control, or looking for needs externally, or your own insecurity, lack of self-worth, that gets reflected onto all of your communication with another. So you essentially are treating, if you're not aware, you're treating somebody the way you treat yourself. Now, if you're treating yourself like this lovely, wonderful being of light and you're just in this place of self-love constantly, then that's how you're going to be with other people. You might be confused why they're not that way with you, and it's probably because they're not in a whole lot of self-love. So start being more aware of what is your internal relationship with your own self. What is your own inner communication, your own languaging that you're using for you? Because the only thing that you can change and control is your own internal relationship with self, your own internal dialogue. When you change that, you change how you are in communication with everyone in your life. And a very strange thing happens as you shift inside yourself and you reflect that upon your relationships. Now you're modeling a strong way of being, a harmonic way of being with others, and they start emulating you, because we naturally move to the highest vibration that we're exposed to. It's called the law of resonance. And so play with the idea that you get to be an instrument in tune. And as you are in tune with your own self, your own words, your own languaging, your own dialogue, others move into a resonance field with you.